Let me give you my take on the Klye Rittenhouse trial. Here's what I've observed, and here's what I believe is true. The prosecution could possibly throw the trial. That is to say, and I don't know if they've wrapped up their titles, their statements or their rebuttals. That is to say, they could say something that could anger the judge, and the judge could call a mistrial, and Klye Rittenhouse will walk free if they call a mistrial with prejudice. They could do that. I don't think that they will, but it's possible. Lawyers are lawyers. Funny things happen in courts. And lawyers, you just never know what they're going to do. I'm talking about the prosecution. You say, well, they would never do that because that would mean that Klye Rittenhouse would get off scot-free. They don't really, they're oftentimes, lawyers don't care one way or the other. They're more concerned about themselves, their future, than they are about the future of the people they're either prosecuting or representative of. I don't think they're going to throw it, but I just want to let you know that that's possible. That's a potential. The other thing is that I want to say to you is the same prosecution that they have not professionally proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that, and listen to it this way. I'm not saying that Klye Rittenhouse is guilty or not guilty. What I'm saying is that the prosecution in their case, and I've observed it quite closely, they've not proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that Klye Rittenhouse should go to prison without parole for the rest of his life. And that's what the jury is going to look at. 2 people are dead, one was injured. Okay. You know, we can talk about self-defense, we can talk about provocation, and I'm going to get to that. But a large part of the way the jury is going to weigh this, did the prosecution prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that Klye Rittenhouse should go to jail for the rest of his life? Let's take the George Floyd event with the boy that Derek Chauvin that put his knee on his neck for 9 minutes. It's pretty obvious. You know, it was proven that Chauvin should go to jail for the rest of his life. That was obvious. This prosecution here in this trial with Klye Rittenhouse has not done that. In fact, they've not come anywhere near it. I think if they had reached a bar beyond 60 to 70% of proof, but the matter's going to come down to this. The jury is going to take away Klye Rittenhouse's life. They want to make sure that the prosecution has professionally done that. And I'll tell you that they haven't done it. The case is a chess case, if you ask me, but if you play chess, not checkers, it's chess. And what I mean by that is that it is clear to me, after what I've said initially, it's clear to me that Klye Rittenhouse went looking for trouble. 17-year-old boy. You remember when you were 17? You had an AR-15 in your hand. You remember you 15. Come on now, let's be real. That boy went out there that night looking for trouble, and we know that he did. And it's pretty clear. The defense said he didn't. The prosecutor said he did. I'm telling you, the boy went. He lives in Illinois. He don't even live in Wisconsin. He had to drive 30 miles to get there. That boy was looking for trouble. And so that can be pretty obvious. But it was also clear at some point he was threatened by the mob. If you've never been in a circumstance like that, you've never seen a mob burning and looting and people running and shouting and carrying on, just the very fact that police feel threatened. Everybody feels threatened. And so when he fired, he may have thought that he was protecting his own life. However, he went looking if he had stayed home. So to some degree, there's the element of pretty clear provocation that Rittenhouse provoked this whole matter that we now see unfolding for us, spending the state's money on a trial and spending all our time watching it. Because if he had stayed home that night and watched on television, none of this would be going on. And 2 people would be alive. So that's something else the jury is going to have to consider. Forget about all the legal technical terms. The jury is going to have to consider whether or not Klye Rittenhouse should go to jail for the rest of his life. Based on the fact, if he had stayed home, 2 people would be alive. But once he was there, did he have a right to have a firearm? And was he provoked or was he threatened? Those are the questions going to be raised. And I think the other question the jury is going to have to deal with that's not necessarily on the docket of charges is that vigilantism is not welcome. It isn't welcome anywhere in America. Because one day it might be Klye Rittenhouse, next day it might be Frank Johnson or Leroy. Going into a Japheth neighborhood in a state where you're allowed to carry long-armed exposed weapons. And going out, he was not officially employed by any, peacekeeping or police force. He didn't belong to anything. He wasn't even a Boy Scout. So those are some things that are going to have to be considered. And the jury is going to have to anticipate all of those things in terms of whether or not he should go or whether whether he should walk free. But I can tell you this: the prosecution has not done a good case, and one of the reasons they have not presented a great case. There are 2 reasons. Reason number one three reasons. Reason number one is I think they were just sloppy and I don't think that they really are that good at trial lawyering, or that they were just unprepared. That's reason number one. Reason number 2, Judge Bruce Schroeder is erratic. I mean, the man is, I don't want to call him an idiot. That might be a bit much. He is a judge, but he is erratic. He appears to be biased. He appears to be unsettled. He appears to be troubled. He's a problem. The man is an outright problem, Judge Schroeder. And the trial is all up in the air because of him. Is it possible that the prosecution could have put on a better case if the judge was not so erratic and impossible and biased? I will say this, however, that the fact that the judge in previous pretrial motions ruled that the people that were killed or shot that night could not be referred to as victims. Now, I know that probably rubs a lot of people the wrong way, but can I tell you why that was a right ruling? Let me let Attorney Manning tell you why that's a right ruling. Because if the prosecution could walk into the courtroom, opening statement, the victims, the dead victims, the moment he feeds the jury that the fact that they are victims and the court has approved that language, it's case closed. Because what it does is says to the jury that these people that are deceased, they were victims. They were not provocateurs. They were not threatening. They were the victim. And Klye Rittenhouse was the aggressor. He was the predator. So to prevent, and I know that seems harsh, it seems insensitive, but it isn't. You're going to have to find some way of convincing the jury that they're victims without saying it and without it look like the court sanctioning that they're victims. Because once the court says they're victims, then the judge himself is saying, find them guilty. Because they were victims. So I can understand that. I know a lot of people were jumping up and down, their hair on fire when they heard that about the trial. I still think the judge is erratic, biased, and off his chain, but I think that was a right ruling. I know that doesn't sit well with a lot of people. But that word was kept out. To call them looters, yes, they may have been. There was looting going on there that night. To call them arsonists, that's potentially good because there was arson going on that night. To call them rioters is right. So that ruling, I know I saw people jumping up and down, their hair on fire, and even some lawyers on television and everything just rebutting that. No, that was a right ruling. That was a right ruling because anything else would have stated that the court agrees that it was that Klye Rittenhouse was the predator and the aggressor. And the last thing I want to say is this, is that and Kyle Rittenhouse may be convicted. I don't know. I don't have a word about whether he's going to be walk or whether he's going to spend the rest of his life in jail or whether he's going to be convicted on something lesser. I have nothing on that. What I'm telling you, my observation is this. If he is convicted, well, if he's not convicted, it'll be because of all the things I just said. That the prosecution just didn't, they were prohibited from doing a professional job by Judge Schroeder, or whether they were just unprofessional and couldn't get around Judge Schroeder. He could walk. He very well could walk. But if he's convicted, it would be because of one thing, in my estimation. I want to ask the engineer to pull up for me the moment where Kyle Rittenhouse last week got all emotional and what is referred to as a breakdown. It broke down in court because the jury saw this, and I'm going to tell you my summation of this in just a moment. But I want to go silent for a moment, and I want you to just watch very carefully Kyle Rittenhouse. I'm going to show it to you once. I'm going to show it to you twice, and then I'm going to give you my review of it.
Describe what happens.
Once I take that step back, I look over my shoulder, and Mr. Rosenbaum was now running from my right side, and I was cornered from in front of me with Mr. Zeminski, and there were three people right there.
Take a deep breath, Kyle.
That's what That's what I run.
We're going to just take time for our break anyway. You can just relax for a minute, sir. We're going to take a break about 10 minutes, and please don't talk about the case during the break. Read, watch, or listen to any account of the trial.
All right. Okay, we don't have to show it a second time. I think you get the point. If he is convicted, it will be because that which I'm referring to as a phony display of remorse, a phony sense of contrition, a phony sense of fear and innocence. I call it a phony breakdown. I've seen a lot of people break down before. When it's real, it's real. I'll tell you this about Kyle Rittenhouse. He is very polished. And I'll say this because Pastor Manny, I even appreciate his attire. That boy has come to court every day, well-dressed. I don't know who his fashion Easter person is. I don't know who tells him what to wear. Listen, that boy has been coming to court well-dressed, the appropriate colors, nothing offensive, very soothing, very American. I mean, he is polished. And not to say that he can't be that on his own. I mean, he's pressed an iron. He could be that of his own regard. Oh, he could be. I'm not saying that somebody had to, but he's polished. That's just, I'm saying he's polished. But not only is he polished, I know that he was he was a great student from his defense lawyers who told him how to answer questions. Don't give out any more information that you have to. There's certain words that you don't use. And I think he was an excellent student. I think that Kyle Rittenhouse has done more to defend himself than his defense lawyers or the judges. And I think when all is said and done, and the story's all told about this in the movie or whatever it is, the directors and the writers are going to have to look at this boy is a sharp young man, both in his personal appearance, in his demeanor, and in his courtroom, if you will, presentation. However, I believe that this breakdown was a phony one. I just don't think it was real. I don't think it was. I think he's just a very smart young man. And if he's convicted, it'll be because the jury will think that he did this to try to demonstrate that he was afraid or that he felt that loss of his own life, that he's remorseful. And I think he wanted to I think the jury will think he threw that in because that's not how he feels. If this breakdown is, if the jury thinks what I think they're going to think, that is phony, then they're going to believe that he's trying to cover up something. You know, his sharp answers, no problem. You should be sharp. His demeanor, his haircut, his presence, his attentiveness. I got to tell you, the boy got it going on. But I just think this breakdown was as phony as a $3 bill. When I saw that, I said, case closed. The boy's covering up something. I said the boy's covering up something. And he is not completely innocent. That's my take on that. He may walk. He may walk. I think when this trial is dissected, there are going to be several things. One is this judge, the American judicial system, has got to look at the behavior of judges in court, because judges act like this in court. We just don't see them on national television. You got some judges who go off the chain on defendants and prosecutors, and sometimes defense lawyers, they go off the chain. And I think this needs to be reviewed. Judges are like gods, and some of them are little gods. They can get crazy on you in a minute. And judges can rule and do things against you knowing that it's going to be overturned and appealed. But they don't give a damn. They want to give you the hassle of having to go through the process of being arrested or whatever it is you got to do. Appeal it, they'll say. They know it ain't going to stand up in an appellate. But judges are off the chain. And this boy, this Schroeder judge, you know, Lance Ito, remember Lance Ito? Remember going back 30 years ago when OJ, remember the OJ trial? Lance Ito was a problem. This judge, the bar ought to call this boy off of that bench. And I would say to every other person having to face judges and every other judge that might listen to us, anybody who's a wife or a daughter or a friend or a lawyer, tell these judges that they should not act like gods over the lives of people. Justice is what they should be about, and not gods. This was appalling to watch what this judge has done. You know, I think the jury is going to be out shortly. And Klye Rittenhouse has taught us something. He might walk. He might walk. But again, if he gets convicted, it'll be because of what I've said. At any rate, everybody, I'm Attorney James David Manning. I'm also the Lord's servant. I'll be right back.
And we mountain.